We're getting ready for another big weekend of MMA. UFC 123 is in Detroit. But where is Kevin Iole? It's very sunny there. I almost hear, it sounds like water in the background. That can't be Detroit.
It is the ocean. There we are, baby. I'm in Atlantic City. I can reach down and pick up all kind of garbage on the beach right here, if you can believe that. How lucky I am.
The beautiful New Jersey, my home state. So let's get into this card in Detroit, because you'll be keeping an eye on that as well. What's your favorite fight on the card?
You know, I really like the main event, Steve. I mean, that's a fight that since Lyoto Machida won the light heavyweight championship, I really wanted to see. I was hoping that would be his first title defense. I think with a fight with he and Rampage, it's just such a fascinating fight on so many different levels, and there's so many ways you can look at this and analyze it. And I think it's a good contrast in styles and a lot of different things that make it a fun fight. I wish I was there cage side to see it.
So what do you think is going to happen with Rampage? He's talked about wanting to bring the fight back to the fight, and yet I've seen other people say, hey, that's kind of an archaic view of fighting. You can't do what you used to do, just charge people and try to blast them out.
Yeah, you know, I thought Dan Wetzel did a really good column on this, and my take on it is this. You know, Rampage has become a talker. You know, Rampage has gone out there and said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but he's got to start backing it up. And we haven't seen the Rampage. You know, what I want to see is the Rampage from Pride. You know, was he the most elegant fighter? Was he the most, you know, technically proficient fighter? No, but he was a guy that, you know, he had the big right hand. He had great wrestling. He would slam guys. You know, he was just a physically dominant guy. And, you know, we haven't seen those slams. We haven't seen him go for the takedowns and get on the top and with the ground and pound and a lot of stuff like that. And to me, I think, you know, that's what Rampage needs to get back to. You know, Wetzel had a good point in his piece. He said Rampage wants to become a fighter, and I think he has to fight, but he has to be a little bit more well-rounded rather than just looking to stalk you and land that big giant right hand. And I thought against Rashad, you know, Rashad fought with nuance, and he thought about what he was doing, and all Rampage did was, you know, kind of cock the right hand and say, I'm going to hit you, I'm going to hit you. And, you know, hey, I mean, that may work against some guys, but you know what? That's not going to work against a Lyoto Machida. And I really think, Steve, that, you know, that's a move that, you know, Rampage really needs to mix up. And if he could add other elements to his game, put his wrestling in and you know, kind of physically manhandle Machida a little bit, slam him down once, even if Machida gets back up, you know, that's going to take a lot out of you.
We always talk about these fights two ways, you know, a straight pick and then also by the odds. Machida is about a 2.5 to 1 favorite. So straight pick, is that different than by the odds? Is there enough value on Rampage to lay an underdog bet on, or you just go with Machida across the board?
You know, I'll tell you, in this one, I like Machida. I just think, you know, there's only one question really about Machida. How does he come back from the knockout at the hands of Shogun Rua? That's the thing that, you know, guys, how do they react coming back from a knockout? So, you know, maybe that makes it worth, you know, getting plus money on Rampage because, you know, Rampage is a powerful guy and a former champion, and that's certainly something now that you have to wonder, is Machida going to be able to deal with that? But I'll be honest with you, Steve, you know, I just see this being a Machida fight. I think, you know, it's going to be more of a technical chess match type of fight, and I think that really bodes well for Lyoto Machida.
The next fight we want to talk about is Hughes and BJ Penn. It's the third time they fought each other. And, you know, in hearing some of the message board fodder, some of the feedback on it, I'm still seeing kind of that the young fan base come through sometimes when they talk about rematches and saying, oh, we're not interested in this fight. And I don't see why you wouldn't be interested in the fight. It's a grudge match. Both of the fighters have now moved along in their career a little bit. They've matured in different ways. There's different questions about them. Of course it's an intriguing fight.
Yeah, I think so, too. I mean, this is a fight that's really hard to get a handle on, you know, who do you like in the fight. But I think it's an intriguing fight just because of that. You know, you want to see fights where you don't know who's going to win and where, you know, you can make cases for either guy and you don't have to stretch. And, you know, I think in this particular fight, that's one of the things. You know, BJ certainly hasn't been BJ in about a year. I mean, you know, he came off that win over Diego Sanchez and you're going, oh, my God, you know, he's finally put it all together, and we're thinking that, you know, BJ's finally going to, you know, all this, for all he had accomplished in MMA, there was always that little bit about there's more left with BJ. Now we're back-to-back losses with Frankie Edgar, where, you know, you say, BJ, you know, what was going on? He's up at welterweight now fighting Matt Hughes. So there's questions there, but certainly there's questions on Matt's side, too. I think it's a fascinating fight as well, and I do like the fight. Tough one to pick.
Now, if I remember correctly, when Matt was struggling a little bit, didn't you push or at least suggest that maybe it was time to retire.
And I don't back off that. I said that in after he got knocked out by Thiago Alves. And, hey, Matt Hughes, is a heck of a guy. He's a Hall of Famer in the UFC. I campaigned for him to be in the Hall of Fame long before he got in, so I hope that I had one little bit of influence on getting him in there. I mean, what the guy's accomplished has been amazing, but, if you look since he lost that fight to Thiago Alves, his wins, I mean, he's got a couple wins, but, beating guys like Renzo Gracie and and Matt Serra, not the same as, as beating guys in their prime at the top of the division. And, I see it hard to believe now that Matt Hughes is going to be able to beat those guys. Maybe he's going to prove me wrong, and he's going to do that. And if he does, that just proves his greatness even more. But I just think, that the kind of fights that Randy Couture is taking and complaining about, Mark Coleman, James Toney, he said this is becoming kind of like a circus act, and I don't want to be in those fights. And Randy's thinking about retiring, and I think that's kind of what's becoming of Matt Hughes. And so, but can Matt summon it up again? That's part of the intrigue of this fight. Can, BJ Penn, a legitimate challenge, a legitimate top-level guy, can Matt summon up the greatness that he once had? If he does it, and if he goes out there and thrashes BJ Penn, then I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I was 100% wrong 2 years ago when I suggested he retire. He still has it left in him. But, until I see him do that, I'm going to, stick by what I said.
You know what I like on the BJ side? The news that comes in that he's going to have some different people in his corner. He's got different people with him in Detroit. Doesn't mean that he worked with all different people before the fight, but he's trying to change things up, and I think he did need to change things up.
Yeah, I think whenever, you have a couple back-to-back lackluster performances, I think that you need to do that. And I think maybe the thing about BJ, Steve, that, we all have such high expectations for him, maybe, he needs to be pushed and needs to be challenged. His first fight that he went with Marv Marinovich, he looked phenomenal. He came out. And I think, maybe BJ needs change because he gets used to and gets comfortable with, what somebody's teaching him, and he kind of doesn't have the, the motivation that he has when he gets a new coach who's, on his backside, and BJ doesn't know everything A to Z.
So who's your pick in the fight?
I'm going to go with BJ in the fight. I think BJ's closer to his prime than Matt is to his. I think BJ has got a lot of ways to win this fight, and I think BJ will win a decision. I think he's going to box Matt Hughes, manage to keep on his feet most of the fight, and if he does that, I think he'll win a strong decision.
Last fight to mention, the two guys going at it at 155, at least at the top end of the card, Sotiropoulos and Lozano, I think are both kind of underrated, and I actually think are really not that far behind that group that's behind Frank Edgar. Is it Lozano who's further along, or is it Sotiropoulos?
I really think Sotiropoulos. I like both guys. I think they're different, but I think Sotiropoulos really has a very, very strong overall game. Joe I like too, but I think Sotiropoulos has beaten better guys. The burden is on Joe here to prove he can take the step up. He didn't do it when he fought Kenny Florian, got handled pretty good. He looked good in Boston at 118, but, that was not against this level of opponent. What I saw out of George Sotiropoulos against Joe Daddy Stevenson in Australia, that was really an impressive win against a really good, strong opponent. And that's the kind of win that we haven't really seen from Joe Lozano yet. I think Joe's got a lot of ability. I think, the one thing you got to love about Joe Lozano is he's got tremendous heart. And, he's really a fans type fighter. And, I like Joe for that reason. And I also like him because he likes Max, right? But, when you look at it on this, he's just like that. But, Sotiropoulos, I think, is really, quietly moved up, and he hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but he's, kind of each time out, looked better and better, been stronger and stronger. And I think he's a pretty good overall fighter. And I'll tell you what, he's going to be a handful for anybody to face.
One more pick you got to make, and it's a personal pick. Healthy salad today or the White House?
Well, I'm dying for the White House, my friend. Dying for the White House, but I've stayed away.
Really?
There is going to be one White House trip visit on this trip. I haven't been here yet. I've been here since Wednesday. Running out of time. The White House may get a few of my dollars today.
All right, Kev. Good job. We'll see you.
Thank you, Steve.